Welcome to Legal Limelight, where we talk about all things intellectual property and feature legal industry insiders. I am super excited to have our special guest, the IP professor, today. Hey, Tony, good to see you. Hey, Glow Beauty Bar and Jay. Hi, guys. Hi, Eliza. And I'm going to bring Tony up here. Hi, Daniel. Good to see you guys. It's another Thursday. Rainy Thursday. Hey!
Hey, Francesca, how are you?
I'm so good. How are you?
I'm good. Loving this weather. My God.
I know. I just said it's like a rainy Thursday.
Yeah, pretty much. When my dog is sleeping in our bed still, my wife and I call it the almanac. You know, there's going to be a crappy day. So she was like sleeping in our bed and we were like leaving and she's not moving. So it's like, okay, we know it's going to be a really rainy, muggy day today.
I run, my kids' daycare is like around the corner. So I have a double running stroller and like every morning we pack it up with all their stuff and we get out the door. I bring them to school, like we run and then we go. And today my husband's like, it's not going to rain this morning. You should go. And like we were about to pack, it would have been like thunder, lightning, like crazy. So I'm glad I didn't traumatize my kids today.
Thanks a lot, Hobie.
Yeah, well, okay. Thank you so much, Tony. Let's get started because we only have a short amount of time and I have so much to talk to you about. Thank you for coming on today. Tony is an intellectual property professor at New York Law School, where he educates law students who are interested in intellectual property, and he's also a content creator that runs the account IP Professor on Instagram and TikTok.
Yep. And it's a pleasure to be on here, and I see a lot of my followers joining, so welcome and thank you guys for supporting and coming on. And it's a pleasure to obviously talk to you a little bit more about myself, Francesca.
Yeah, exactly. So let's get into it because you're the IP professor. You're putting out amazing content and reels, which we need to dive into. But how did you get started? Did you know you always wanted to be a professor? Where did your legal journey begin?
So in a very brief summary, I knew I wanted to go to law school dating back to college. I just wasn't sure what avenue of the law I wanted to go into. So I went to Fordham University, majoring in communications and media studies. And I quickly found that media and entertainment was something that was of interest to me, perhaps a crossover with the law. And then I saw Jerry Maguire in my senior year of college, and I thought, you know what, sports agent, that's what I want to be. So I was really passionate about being in the sports law industry. So I went to New York Law School, my alma mater, was deeply saturated in all things sports law, participating in our sports law society, and then came to realize that being a sports agent really isn't all that it's cut out to be. It's very cutthroat, conniving, and I'm a very nice guy, very gentle type of guy, and I just found myself not competing with the likes of like Scott Boras or Drew Rosenhaus or all these other big name agents. So still really passionate about sports law. Didn't really know what I wanted to do specifically, but during my 1L year of law school, I started my own video blog called Law and Batting Order as a gateway to talk a little bit more about the sports law issues going on. So I almost treated it like a legal version of SportsCenter, if you will. So I covered contracts, tort law, criminal law matters. There was a lot going on, especially with the Aaron Hernandez trial at the time. But little by little, I found myself really interested in intellectual property. And it was the one area of law that really promoted creativity and ingenuity. And so I found myself taking studies in law school related to IP. I was very fortunate to get an internship at ABC News Rights and Clearances as a rising 3L all throughout my 3L year. So basically a full calendar year, working on all things copyright clearances during my time in law school. Graduated, came back to ABC News Rights and Clearances on a freelance basis. It was only for 7.5 months, but still saturated myself in all things copyright. Then found my first full-time job at another rights and clearances agency where I dealt with dead celebrities and their personality rights representing Albert Einstein. And then 2.5 years later, I found my way back here at ABC News, still doing what I love, which is being involved in news, but storytelling in a more unique way. I'm not David Muir. I mean, I may have good hair like him, but I'm not David Muir in front of a camera telling the story. but I'm behind the scenes involved in the licensing that helps get that story being told.
So, and did you say, did I hear right? Are you still active with ABC?
I am, yes.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about that.
So I'm the manager of our department. I'm second in command, and I am basically involved in a bevy of different news projects. I think because of the pandemic, our workload has increased 50-fold because of streaming. So we're doing broadcast clearances for all the standard shows like Nightline, GMA, World News. I'm primarily assigned to 2020 and Nightline. And then we're also doing broadcast special shows, ABC News branded programming for Hulu, which is under the Walt Disney Company. So we're doing specific projects that are under the ABC News Studios side of things. And, essentially my line of business is working with licensors to license their photo and video content because they're the copyright owner, working on license agreements, involved in negotiations. I'm working on fun projects that are kind of up my alley. So I've worked on a few movie projects related to West Side Story, and Elvis, the last Elvis, the film that just came out a few months ago. I worked on a special for the 50th anniversary of Walt Disney World. And we got a lot of great projects coming out down the pipeline, but it's a very unique job in terms of understanding what it means to work with other producers. And just, I know that a lot of people have an aversion to corporate culture, but I will say, at least for my department and our team, which is a team of 7, we're very familial, and it doesn't feel corporate. It feels like a very small firm-esque type of life.
That's awesome.
And at the end of the day, we work like a team. So I couldn't ask for better colleagues to work with.
So you have a full time, and it's full time.
It's full time.
Your full time job, okay? And what about teaching? Is it full time?
Teaching is an adjunct job, thankfully. I only started that about 4 years ago. It was on a whim. I really love mentoring students. I would regularly, before the pandemic, I would regularly go on LinkedIn and basically tell students, if you ever wanted to meet with me, I'm more than happy to kind of share my story, because I know that as a law student, I struggle to get a connection with anybody in the legal field. And I said I never wanted to follow on that path. So I wanted to sort of pay it forward. So my whole shtick was email me. I'll give you a tour of ABC News, and we'll get a cup of coffee at our Starbucks shop here at the offices. And I would carve out an hour of my time to do that with students. That's amazing. I found that mentorship for me was something that I deeply valued, because I knew that as a student who graduated with a 3.03 GPA, 67% on my class, I always felt like numbers mattered or grade rank mattered. And you know what? It didn't matter. It was just about who I was and what I could bring to the table as a candidate. And I want to share that message with students. So through my mentorship with students, I found that maybe I could do that by way of teaching. And I found teaching to be an extension of that. So on a whim, I emailed New York Law School. Could I teach a drafting contracts class? No, we don't have any availability, but why don't you guest lecture for a class to see how you feel in an hour, 40-minute format, which I did. Nerve-wracking, but did it. And then I was invited to start teaching in the fall 2019 semester, entertainment law. And then in the middle of the semester, I was offered the IP spring opportunity to teach. So I teach entertainment law in the fall. I teach IP in the spring. It's a very nice balance. And my students seem to like it, because the numbers keep growing.
That's so amazing. And this is why, I do these interviews, because there's so many layers to the lawyers that are on here. You brand yourself as an IP professor, but clearly, you're working full time at one of the biggest global entertainment companies, and that motivates people. And I think what hopefully we can all show people is that you don't have to just put yourself in a box. You don't have to just be a big law attorney or just be a partner in a firm. You really can do so much more. So can you tell us a little bit about balancing and finding the time to create content, be a teacher, and also work full time?
So the work full time thing is, it's nice because I have a balance, a 9 to 5, pretty much a 9 to 5 steady job. Of course, breaking news happens. The Queen passed away last week, so obviously craziness. Yeah. But either way, there's a balance to our work schedule. I'm working hybrid right now, so I'm in the office today, but normally I would be at home, which is really good because it again, create some sense of balance. But, teaching is a one day a week affair. But I am, I'm talking to students constantly if they want to meet during the week. So I'm able to make time during my schedule because, there are lulls during the day, not saying I'm not working, but there are gaps during my time where I could be able to meet with them. So that way I can address their needs and address, that aspect of my work life. And then, the content creation side of things, sometimes I hate to say it, make myself sound like Rain Man, but it's almost like I have premonitions of like ideas just from like scrolling casually at the end of the night, like for an idea of a reel that I want to do or a TikTok video that I want to do. So then if I find something that's a trending audio or something that topic wise is relevant to something I want to talk about in the context of IP, you know what? I kind of bookmark it and I say, tomorrow I'll work on it. And I kind of have an idea of, how I do my reels in such a way where it's not interfering with my full-time job. I'm able to kind of do it towards the later end of the day when things are slow, or after 5 o'clock. So, I'm not interfering with my time with my wife or things like that.
Yep.
So it's the kind of thing where I know it's somewhat hard to explain, but I've had this account for almost a year and a half. And I guess it's just kind of like muscle memory in a way that I know, there's a time for my job, there's a time for teaching, and then there's a time for the content creation, and then most importantly, there's a time for my personal life.
No, 100%. And so like time management and really like blocking time. That has been everything. I mean, I have 2 small kids. I started a book of business. I'm a partner at a firm, but I needed clients. I had no clients in the middle of the pandemic. And so I used the internet. I created an account, and it's like you thinking of how you like hearing how you content create and how you brainstorm. I'm very similar, and I'm actually not a huge consumer of content. Like that kind of like my mom asks me, she's like, "How are you online all the time?" I'm like, that's actually not me because I eventually hired a social media manager. But I'm not on like all the time. But when I am, like same thing, Tony, I'm looking at them because I'm like, wow, that's a great idea. I save the audio, I bookmark the content. And then so when I have free time, and I mean, it'll even be like, I get 5 minutes in between like a call, or I get 5 minutes after my kid goes to bed. Like in the car, I'll sneak it in somehow and I make a super quick video because I have it already in my brain that I know that I want to record, and then I save it as a draft. So like that process, do you have any advice for people who like are super busy like yourself, but do want to start creating more content?
I think the best advice I can give is, kind of start easy. Don't force yourself to do too much. I started by posting, I would say roughly 2 videos per week just to get an idea. I mean, by the time when I started the IP Professor, it was more or less 5 years since I had done content creation, because the last time I did it was with Law and Batting Order. So it's the first time that I was back in front of a camera doing something for the internet, that I was doing it in a way more synthesized manner, because my episodes for Law and Batting Order could have ranged from 3 minutes to 10 minutes. I did a full report. It was almost like a Nightline segment. And so I started out small, not forcing myself to do too much, kind of covered evergreen topics. Then if I noticed that maybe current events would be a way to kind of bring things in. So then I started bringing that into the fold. And then basically as I became more acquainted with the format of social media consumption now, since it's drastically evolved, and understanding what my audience wanted, I addressed those needs and I slowly evolved my account little by little. And then at the start of this year, I made almost like a resolution to post at least 1 video per day. There have been a few days here and there where I've just burnt out, or I was suggesting something else.
The algorithm will forgive you if you miss.
Yeah, exactly.
But it won't forgive you if you stop.
That's right, exactly. So like for example, I was on vacation, so celebrating our wedding anniversary. I was off the internet for 10 days, and it was great. It was perfectly fine, because I came back and I picked up where I left off, and it was totally cool. So I think I think
algorithm gives vacations.
yeah, exactly. So I would say if you're new to the content creation game, start out small. baby steps. That's how it goes. You can't, this is what I tell my students when they're even trying to find an internship in IP. Start out by building the foundation. Build the foundation first, and then you can start building the basement, and then the first floor, second floor, the garage, so on and so forth.
It's so true, and like you've done an incredible job. I love your reels. Like they
Thank
have
you.
me cracking up. Like what was the most recent one where you were in your kitchen, like, or was it
Ice Cube.
No, it's so good. So what advice do you have to lawyers who still don't really get it, but they're curious? Like maybe they don't really understand TikTok and Reels, and they're a little bit nervous of looking like anything else besides a serious person in a suit. What's your advice to someone like that who is a little bit curious to see what this stuff is all about?
I think that the first step is to understand that media are constantly evolving. You know, I'll speak specifically to, like, let's say an older generation of attorney, let's say that went through the law school system in the 70s, even the 80s. At that time, the media that we had were newspapers, television, and radio. And then we slowly evolved into, you know, portable media like, you know, 8-tracks or CD players, so on and so forth. But even then, we've evolved to, you know, more consumption of other content through other forms of media, a la the internet, computers, laptops, better TVs, better radios being Sirius XM radio now, phones. So media are constantly evolving. And I think that part of that means that the messaging on that media are constantly evolving. And so I think the narrative has to shift from blah, blah, blah is the devil, or, yeah, like whatever, right? That has to kind of be out of the head. And the narrative instead should be, how can I utilize blah, blah, blah for my business? Or how can I utilize blah, blah, blah for my branding purposes? You know, students come up to me and say, you know, I want to break into IP, but I don't know how to do it. How do I break in? I've suggested to students, write a blog like I did, or, you know, start a video blog. You know, it's ambitious, but I would rather try that and have something to bring up in a conversation at a networking event than not try at all. And I'm glad it did, because Law and Batting Order got me my internship at ABC News Rights and Clearances. It paid off. I was interviewed at ESPN, and the guy who was a jerk, I'm not going to say his name, but was a total jerk, said to me, you know, with something like this, I don't think you're ever going to get an internship opportunity, maybe even a job in the legal industry and sports law.
It's so funny, right?
You know?
Yeah.
Joke's on you, man.
Yeah, no. And so there is a fabulous and super intelligent young female law student who is crushing it right now. I am about to offer her a legal internship with me, and I had a great call with her, and she told me that she's had difficulty getting jobs at firms because she's super smart. Like, she's won a ton of competitions, and like her GPA is crazy, and like still there's firms that are telling her, we don't like your social media, or, you know, if you want to be where we are, we suggest you delete it. And like even career services for some of these students that are online, and I'm like, are you crazy?
Exactly.
This is the fact that this young woman and all of the other people of that generation are hungry and like consuming and then creating content and building something, building a brand. I mean, that is a no-brainer to me. It shows they're entrepreneurial, they're hardworking, they will go above and beyond the just whatever whatever it takes to pass law school, right? They're like doing everything and more. And so, like, what is your advice to firms and in-house counsel when they see this younger generation of law students that are using social media?
I would say, one, get with the program, but two, I think it's it's a very it's an incorrect thought to have that social media is a detriment to one's professional growth and success. Now, all right, if there's a student out there that gets a job at a firm and they have an OnlyFans linked on their bio,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
like,
yeah.
oh,
There's
check
a
me out,
difference
link,
between professional and like unprofessional. I
yeah,
like,
okay, like that's
yeah,
totally different. But if a student is using a social media account for their professional growth and benefit, to promote a podcast, to show themselves networking at local school functions or at a bar association event, where is the fault in that? I think that there's a total legitimate use of that social media account. And I think, again, it goes back to people trying to shift the narrative from TikTok or Instagram or all these other platforms are the devil. We can't have a Bobby Boucher mama type of mentality. We have to have the mentality of, this could actually be to everybody's benefit if utilized
yeah,
it the right way. So that's what I do.
yeah. The way that I explain it and try to, because I'm like really, I make these and then I cross post to LinkedIn, my professional network, because I want other lawyers to see this. And my takeaways typically when I, do these types of posts, I want to encourage all lawyers to use social media as an extension of themselves. You don't have to do dancing videos. You don't have to act a certain way. It's literally however you are perceived in the real world, you should also be building yourself and your brand
Exactly.
online. And so the content that I create is going to be totally different than the content that someone else creates. But I do encourage everyone to start, and you could start with LinkedIn. You could like write a LinkedIn post if Word is what you want to do, but just start sharing your stories and connect with your colleagues. I think that's like the takeaway.
Exactly. I mean, I utilize LinkedIn a lot to kind of talk about my passion for IP once I was, out of in full-fledged in the workforce. Then when I started working with the Einstein estate, I used, that as an opportunity to talk about the great work we were doing on the Einstein licensing side of things. And then when I started showing a more specific interest in teaching, then I started, shifting the narrative towards talking about mentorship and how important it is for other practitioners of this field to mentor other students and give them the advice, to give them the time of day, even if it's just 5 minutes or 15 minutes, whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, I even starting out small like that, totally endorse it. Absolutely.
I think there's a lot of fear and judgment. Like a lot of it's a lot of fear based, and there's abundance thinking and positive thinking, and then there's fear thinking and lack
Yeah,
thinking. And so I really do encourage everyone to just have an open mind about it. And instead of being so afraid to say something that could be construed as legal advice, which is ridiculous because if you're talking to city bar groups, like no one's concerned. Um,
exactly.
or if you feel that it's going to hurt your brand at all, I do encourage everyone to at least put yourself out there and have an open mind about it. I mean, you're a great example, Tony. Like you're obviously an extremely successful professional, but you also are mentoring and you're content creating, and you're doing a wonderful job.
Thank you. Thank you. I think it required a lot of patience on my part to kind of get to this point in my career. I'm still, I'm only 33 years old, so I know that the road down, hopefully, is still very long for me professionally. But I take things day by day, and I never take anything for granted. I'm very blessed and fortunate to be in the position that I'm in. I've worked hard for this, and the only thing I can do as somebody in my place is to continue to advocate for students to not give up, to just keep trying, and not saying that my formula or anybody else's formula is the way to go, but I can certainly advocate that baby steps were the way that I got to where I am professionally. And I think that that's a universal thought that should be heard by every law student.
So amazing. And I think that's a great note. We usually end with like a word of advice. That was perfect. So I'm going to let you get back to content creating and working. Thank you so much, Tony, for coming on today. Where's the best place that people can find you?
Follow me on the IP Professor on TikTok and Instagram. And I may have a website soon.
Ooh.
That's an exclusive. It may be coming out fairly soon. So stay tuned for
That's
that.
awesome. I get the exclusive news. Thank you, Tony. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. This was Legal Limelight. We're here every Thursday at 1 o'clock Eastern Time, and we'll see you next week.
Take care,
Bye.
everybody.
Bye,
Bye,
Tony.
Francesca.